Sarah Martinez had always been different from her co-workers at the accounting firm. While they talked about weekend shopping trips and reality TV shows, she kept to herself, eating lunch alone and leaving exactly at 5 o'clock. Her colleagues knew almost nothing about her past, except that she had served in the military before joining their company 3 years ago. The tattoo on her left shoulder blade became the subject of office gossip after the summer company picnic. When Sarah rolled up her sleeves to help with the barbecue, several people caught a glimpse of what looked like a strange circular design with symbols they didn't recognize. The tattoo was intricate, featuring what appeared to be a bird of prey surrounded by geometric patterns and numbers that made no sense to anyone who saw it. "Did you see Sarah's weird tattoo?" whispered Jennifer from Human Resources to Mark, from sales during their Monday morning coffee break. "It looks like some kind of alien language or something. Maybe she's one of those conspiracy theory people." The teasing started small. Someone left a printout of UFO sightings on her desk. Another coworker jokingly asked if she was part of a secret cult. Sarah handled it all with quiet dignity, never explaining what the tattoo meant or why she had gotten it. She would simply smile politely and change the subject, which only made her colleagues more curious and, unfortunately, more persistent with their jokes. The office manager, Dave, was the worst of them all. He had never liked Sarah's serious demeanor and saw the mysterious tattoo as the perfect opportunity to get under her skin. During team meetings, he would make comments about ancient symbols and mysterious markings. He even started calling her X-Files behind her back, referring to the popular TV show about government conspiracies and unexplained phenomena. Sarah's patience was wearing thin, but she had bigger concerns than office bullies. Every morning, she checked her secure email account before work, looking for any communication from her former contacts. The tattoo wasn't just artwork to her. It was a reminder of a life she could never fully leave behind, a life that had required her to keep secrets that could never be shared with civilians like her current co-workers. What her colleagues didn't know was that Sarah had spent 8 years as a reconnaissance specialist in the Air Force, specializing in intelligence gathering for classified operations. Her last assignment had been so sensitive that even now, 3 years after her discharge, she was bound by non-disclosure agreements that would last for decades. The tattoo represented the most dangerous mission of her career, one that officially never happened and involved technologies that the public wouldn't learn about for years to come. The design wasn't random artwork chosen from a tattoo parlor wall. Every line, every symbol, every number had been carefully planned to commemorate something that had changed her life forever. It was a tribute to her fallen teammates and a reminder of the sacrifice they had made for national security. But explaining any of this would mean breaking her oath and potentially endangering ongoing operations. As the weeks passed, the office jokes became more elaborate. Someone created a fake Decode Sarah's Tattoo contest and posted it in the break room. Others began bringing in pictures of random symbols they found online, asking if they matched her mysterious ink. Dave even suggested they hire a tattoo expert to analyze the meaning during their next team-building event. Sarah knew she was reaching her breaking point. The constant attention was not only annoying but potentially dangerous. If the wrong person became too interested in her tattoo and started doing serious research, they might stumble onto classified information that could compromise national security. She had to find a way to make the teasing stop without revealing the truth about her past. Late one evening, as Sarah was leaving the office after everyone else had gone home, she noticed a black sedan parked across the street. The windows were tinted, but she could see the silhouette of someone sitting in the driver's seat. Her training kicked in immediately, and she memorized the license plate number while pretending to search for her car keys. This wasn't the first time she had noticed unusual vehicles in the area, and her instincts told her that her past might be catching up with her present. The black sedan appeared again the next morning, this time parked near the coffee shop where Sarah grabbed her usual morning latte. She decided to test her suspicions by taking an unusual route to work, making several unnecessary turns through residential neighborhoods. Sure enough, the sedan maintained a careful distance behind her, confirming what she had feared. Someone was watching her. At work, the tattoo jokes continued with renewed energy. Dave had apparently spent his weekend researching mysterious symbols online and was convinced he was close to cracking the code. During the morning staff meeting, He pulled up several websites on his laptop, showing images of ancient runes, Masonic symbols, and even crop circle patterns. "I bet it's one of these," Dave announced proudly, pointing to a collection of geometric designs on his screen. "Sarah's probably part of some secret society or weird religious group." "Come on, Sarah, just tell us what it means. We're all dying to know." The other employees laughed and encouraged Dave to keep investigating. Someone suggested they should take a photo of Sarah's tattoo and upload it to social media to see if anyone could identify it. Another coworker joked about contacting tattoo reality shows to feature their Mystery Inc. case. Sarah felt her stomach tighten with each suggestion. The last thing she needed was her tattoo plastered all over the internet, where it could be seen by the wrong people. She politely declined all requests to photograph the tattoo, claiming it was too personal to share publicly. This only made her coworkers more determined to solve what they saw as an exciting puzzle. During her lunch break, Sarah stepped outside to call her former commanding officer, Colonel Rebecca Hayes, using a secure phone number she had memorized but hoped never to use. The call went straight to voicemail, which was expected. She left a coded message that would alert the colonel to a potential security concern, without revealing specific details over an unsecured line. When Sarah returned to the office, she found Dave at her computer looking frustrated. "Locked, of course," he muttered as she approached. "I was hoping to check your browser history to see what kind of websites you visit. Might give us a clue about your mysterious tattoo." "That's my personal computer for work purposes only," Sarah said firmly, her military training helping her maintain composure despite her anger. "I'd appreciate it if you respected my privacy." Dave shrugged and walked away, but not before making another comment about people with things to hide. Sarah realized the situation was escalating beyond harmless office teasing and was becoming a potential security risk. That afternoon, she received a text message from an unknown number. "Package delivery scheduled for your home address after work hours. Be available." Sarah recognized the code immediately. Someone from her former unit was coming to see her, which meant the situation was more serious than she had thought. The rest of the workday dragged on with more tattoo-related jokes and speculation. Jennifer from HR suggested they should organize a tattoo-meaning guessing game for the next office party. Mark from sales wondered aloud if Sarah's tattoo was actually a map to buried treasure. Even the normally quiet receptionist, Linda, got involved by bringing in a book about symbol interpretation she had borrowed from the library. Sarah managed to deflect most of the attention by claiming she had important deadlines to meet. But she could feel the walls closing in. Her coworkers were becoming more persistent, and the surveillance outside was becoming more obvious. She noticed at least 2 different vehicles that day, both with tinted windows and government license plates that most people wouldn't recognize, but were clearly visible to someone with her training. As 5 o'clock approached, Sarah prepared to leave work, knowing that answers to her current situation were waiting for her at home. She had spent 3 years trying to live a normal civilian life, but it seemed that her past was determined to find her. The tattoo that her coworkers found so amusing was about to reveal its true significance, and Sarah wasn't sure she was ready for what that might mean. Before leaving the office, she overheard Dave making plans to research tattoo databases online that evening. He was convinced he could solve the mystery if he just looked hard enough. Sarah realized she was running out of time before someone stumbled onto information they weren't supposed to find. Her quiet life as an accountant was about to change dramatically, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Sarah's small apartment felt different when she arrived home that evening. Nothing was out of place, but her trained eyes immediately noticed subtle signs that someone had been there. A book on her coffee table was positioned slightly differently than she remembered, and one of her kitchen cabinet doors wasn't quite fully closed. Someone had been inside, and they were professionals. She didn't have to wait long for answers. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a soft knock at her door, 3 short taps followed by 2 longer ones. Sarah recognized the pattern immediately and opened the door to find Agent Marcus Thompson, someone she hadn't seen since her discharge ceremony 3 years ago. Marcus looked older than she remembered, with more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes. He was wearing civilian clothes, but his posture and alert expression marked him clearly as military to anyone who knew what to look for. He stepped inside quickly and immediately began checking her windows and door locks. "We need to talk," Marcus said without any preliminary greetings. "Your tattoo has become a problem." Sarah felt her heart sink. How big of a problem? Big enough that we've been monitoring your workplace for the past 2 weeks, Marcus replied, pulling out a small electronic device that would detect any listening devices in the apartment. Your coworker Dave has been asking questions online about military symbols. He posted a detailed description of your tattoo on 3 different forums dedicated to decoding mysterious markings. The device in Marcus's hand remained silent, indicating the apartment was clean of surveillance equipment. He relaxed slightly and sat down across from Sarah, pulling out a tablet computer. On the screen was a screenshot of an online forum post titled, "Help me decode this weird military-looking tattoo." Sarah read Dave's post with growing horror. He had described her tattoo in remarkable detail, including specific measurements and the exact positioning of every symbol. He had even mentioned that the person with the tattoo was a former Air Force member who worked at an accounting firm in their city. The post had already received dozens of responses from amateur investigators and military enthusiasts. Most of the responses are harmless speculation, Marcus explained, scrolling through the comments. But 3 of the people who replied have connections to foreign intelligence services. They're very interested in finding the person with this particular tattoo. Sarah stared at the screen, watching as more comments appeared in real time. Someone had already figured out that the numerical sequence in her tattoo corresponded to a specific date in 2019, which was dangerously close to when her classified mission had taken place. Another commenter had identified the bird symbol as being similar to designs used by certain special operations units. What was the mission again? Marcus asked, though Sarah knew he already remembered every detail. Project Nightingale. Reconnaissance of foreign military installations using experimental stealth technology. You and your team spent 6 months gathering intelligence that prevented a potential international conflict. Sarah nodded, remembering the months of dangerous work that had earned her team their commemorative tattoos. The mission had been so successful and so classified that even most high-ranking military officials didn't know it had happened. The tattoo was supposed to be a private memorial to their achievement and the 2 team members who hadn't made it home. The technology you observed during that mission is still classified at the highest levels. Marcus continued. If foreign agents can identify you through your tattoo and connect you to Project Nightingale, they might try to extract information about our current capabilities. Sarah felt the weight of her situation settling on her shoulders. Her innocent decision to get a memorial tattoo was now endangering national security, and her co-workers' harmless teasing had inadvertently attracted the attention of international spies. There's more, Marcus said, showing her another screen. Dave hasn't stopped with online forums. He contacted a local tattoo artist who specializes in military designs, asking if he could identify the symbols. The tattoo artist happened to be a veteran himself, and recognized enough of the design to realize it was connected to classified operations. Fortunately, he called his former commanding officer instead of posting about it online. Sarah realized that the net was tightening around her. Every attempt her coworkers made to solve the mystery of her tattoo was creating new security risks. She was trapped between her obligation to protect classified information and her desire to maintain her normal civilian life. What are my options? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Marcus closed the tablet and looked at her seriously. We need you to disappear, at least temporarily. New identity, new location, new job. It's the only way to ensure that foreign agents can't track you down and attempt to extract information about Project Nightingale. The thought of abandoning the life she had built over the past 3 years was devastating. She had finally started to feel normal again, to heal from the trauma of military service and the loss of her teammates. Now she would have to start over completely because of a tattoo that was meant to honor their memory. How long? Sarah asked. We don't know, Marcus replied honestly. Possibly permanent. Once your identity is compromised in intelligence circles, it's very difficult to go back to a normal life. Sarah walked to her window and looked out at the street where she had lived peacefully for 3 years. Tomorrow morning, her co-workers would arrive at the office expecting to continue their harmless game of trying to decode her mysterious tattoo. They had no idea that their amateur detective work had already set in motion events that would change her life forever. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work knowing it would be her last day, though her co-workers had no idea what was about to unfold. She had spent most of the night packing essential items and preparing for a life that would begin within hours. Marcus had given her until noon to wrap up her civilian affairs before they would need to implement emergency relocation protocols. Dave was more excited than usual when he arrived at the office, carrying a thick folder and grinning widely. "Sarah, you're going to love this," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I think I've cracked your tattoo mystery. I found someone online who says they've seen that exact design before." Sarah's blood ran cold as Dave opened his folder and pulled out printed screenshots from various websites and forums. He had clearly spent the entire night researching, and his amateur investigation had gone much further than anyone had anticipated. "Look at this," Dave said, spreading papers across the break room table, where several co-workers had gathered for their morning coffee. "I found a military historian who says that design is similar to patches used by special reconnaissance units. And get this, the numbers in your tattoo match up with a specific time period when there were rumors about secret Air Force missions." Jennifer from HR leaned in closer to examine the printouts. "That's amazing detective work, Dave. Sarah, this is so exciting. Were you really part of some kind of secret mission?" Sarah tried to maintain her composure while internally calculating how much classified information Dave had already exposed through his online research. Each paper he pulled from his folder represented another security breach that could potentially compromise ongoing operations. "It's just a tattoo," Sarah said quietly, but her voice lacked the casual dismissiveness she was aiming for. The stress of the situation was beginning to show, and her co-workers interpreted her nervousness as confirmation that they were onto something significant. Mark from sales joined the group, looking at the papers with obvious fascination. "Dave, you should contact that TV show about unsolved mysteries. This could be a real story about government secrets and cover-ups." Sarah felt panic rising in her chest. The last thing national security needed was television producers investigating her background and potentially exposing details about Project Nightingale to millions of viewers. "I actually did reach out to a journalist," Dave said proudly, pulling out his phone. "There's a guy who writes about military conspiracies for an online magazine. He's very interested in Sarah's story and wants to interview her about her time in the Air Force." The room fell silent as everyone turned to look at Sarah, waiting for her reaction. She realized that her cover was completely blown and that Marcus's timeline for her disappearance might need to be accelerated. The situation had moved beyond containment and was rapidly approaching a point where serious damage to national security could occur. "I need to make a phone call," Sarah said, stepping away from the group. She walked quickly to her desk and used her cell phone to send an emergency text message to Marcus. "Situation critical. Civilian contacted journalist. Need immediate extraction." When she returned to the break room, Dave was showing her coworkers a website on his laptop. On the screen was an article titled "The Hidden Truth About Secret Military Operations: What They Don't Want You to Know." The article featured several photographs of military patches and symbols, including one that was remarkably similar to Sarah's tattoo. "This journalist thinks there might be a whole network of veterans who have tattoos connected to classified missions," Dave explained excitedly. "He wants to find as many of them as possible and expose what the government has been hiding from the public." Sarah realized that Dave's amateur investigation had accidentally stumbled onto something much larger than just her individual tattoo. If a journalist started seriously investigating veterans with memorial tattoos from classified operations, it could compromise multiple ongoing security programs and endanger the lives of active operatives. Her phone buzzed with a response from Marcus. "Team en route. Maintain cover for 30 more minutes." Sarah knew she had to buy time and prevent her coworkers from sharing any more information online or with journalists before Marcus could arrive. She decided to take a calculated risk and reveal just enough truth to make them understand the seriousness of the situation without exposing classified details. "You need to stop this research immediately," Sarah said firmly, looking directly at Dave. "You're interfering with ongoing national security operations, and people could get hurt." The break room went quiet again, but this time the silence had a different quality. Sarah's serious tone and the mention of national security had finally gotten through to her coworkers that this might not be the harmless game they had thought it was. Dave looked confused and slightly defensive. "What do you mean, national security? It's just a tattoo. We're not doing anything illegal." Some information is classified for reasons that protect people's lives, Sarah explained carefully. When you post detailed descriptions of military symbols online and contact journalists about secret operations, you're creating security risks that could have serious consequences. Linda, the normally quiet receptionist, spoke up for the first time. Sarah, are you saying we accidentally did something dangerous? Before Sarah could answer, she heard the sound of multiple vehicles pulling into the parking lot outside the office building. Through the window, she could see several black SUVs and men in suits getting out. Marcus had arrived with backup, which meant the situation was being treated as a major security incident. Sarah looked at her co-workers, who were all staring at her with expressions ranging from confusion to concern. In a few minutes, federal agents would be walking through their office door, and their simple accounting firm would become the center of a national security investigation. Her quiet civilian life was officially over. The office door opened and Marcus walked in, followed by 3 other agents in dark suits. They moved with the quiet efficiency that Sarah remembered from her military days, quickly assessing the room and positioning themselves strategically. The casual atmosphere of the break room transformed instantly into something that felt more like a crime scene. "Good morning," Marcus said politely, showing his credentials to the stunned group of office workers. "I'm Agent Thompson with the Department of Defense. We need to speak with everyone who has been involved in researching Ms. Martinez's tattoo." Dave's face had gone completely pale. The folder full of research papers suddenly seemed much less exciting when federal agents were examining them with serious expressions. "We weren't doing anything wrong," he stammered. "We were just curious about Sarah's tattoo. It was just office fun." "We understand that your intentions were innocent," Marcus replied calmly, "but your research has inadvertently interfered with classified national security matters. We need to assess what information has been shared and with whom." Jennifer from HR raised her hand tentatively, as if she were back in school. "Are we in trouble? Do we need lawyers?" "You're not in legal trouble," Marcus assured her, "but we do need your cooperation to prevent any further security breaches. Everyone who participated in researching the tattoo will need to sign non-disclosure agreements and provide details about any online posts, forum discussions, or contacts with journalists." Sarah watched as her coworkers began to understand the magnitude of what had accidentally been set in motion. Mark from sales was frantically scrolling through his phone, probably trying to remember what he had posted on social media about the tattoo mystery. Linda looked like she was about to cry from stress. Agent Rebecca Chen, one of Marcus's team members, began interviewing each employee individually while another agent examined Dave's research materials. Sarah could hear fragments of the conversations as her coworkers explained their involvement in what they now realized was a serious security incident. "I only shared the forum post with my brother," Mark was explaining to Agent Chen. "He's really into conspiracy theories, so I thought he'd find it interesting." "Was that bad?" Dave was having a more difficult conversation with Marcus about his contact with the journalist. "He seemed really knowledgeable about military history," Dave said defensively. "I thought he was legitimate. I didn't know I was supposed to check if journalists were approved by the government." Sarah felt guilty watching her coworkers struggle with the consequences of what had started as harmless office teasing. They had no way of knowing that her tattoo represented one of the most classified operations in recent military history, and their curiosity had led them into a situation far beyond their understanding. Agent Chen approached Sarah while the interviews continued. "We've been monitoring the online discussions that your coworker initiated," she said quietly. 3 different foreign intelligence services have shown interest in the information. We intercepted communications indicating that at least one operative was planning to make contact with you directly." Sarah nodded grimly. She had suspected as much when she noticed the surveillance vehicles, but hearing it confirmed made the danger feel more real. Her former teammates from Project Nightingale were still active in various classified programs, and exposing her connection to the mission could compromise their current operations. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "We're implementing full containment protocols," Agent Chen replied. "Your coworkers will sign NDAs with serious legal penalties for any further discussion of this matter. All online posts and forum discussions will be removed or discredited. The journalist your coworker contacted will receive a visit from our disinformation team." Sarah understood what that meant. The government would systematically erase or discredit every trace of Dave's amateur investigation, making it seem like the whole thing had been a hoax or misunderstanding. Anyone who had shown interest in the tattoo would be quietly discouraged from pursuing the matter further. "And me?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. "You disappear," Agent Chen confirmed. "New identity, new location, new life. We're moving you to a safe house today, and you'll remain there while we prepare your relocation." Across the room, Dave was becoming increasingly agitated as he realized the seriousness of his situation. "This is insane," he said loudly. "It's just a tattoo. How was I supposed to know that asking questions about it would cause all this trouble?" Marcus looked at Dave with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. "Mr. Hendricks, you posted detailed descriptions of classified military insignia on public forums and contacted journalists about secret government operations. While your intentions were innocent, the consequences of those actions could have endangered American lives and compromised ongoing national security programs." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Sarah's co-workers finally understood that their office game had accidentally touched on something much larger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Jennifer spoke up hesitantly. "What about Sarah? What happens to her job here?" "Ms. Martinez will be taking an indefinite leave of absence for personal reasons," Marcus replied. "You'll be told that she had to relocate suddenly to care for a sick family member. Under no circumstances should any of you discuss her tattoo, her military service, or today's events with anyone." Sarah realized this was goodbye. She looked around the break room at the people she had worked with for 3 years. Knowing she would never see them again, they had inadvertently destroyed her carefully constructed civilian life, but she couldn't bring herself to be angry with them. They were innocent victims of circumstances they couldn't have possibly understood. Agent Chen touched Sarah's arm gently. "It's time to go. We need to get you to the safe house before anyone realizes what's happening here." Sarah gathered her personal items from her desk while her co-workers watched in stunned silence. 3 years of building a normal life were ending because of a tattoo that was meant to honor fallen friends and commemorate a mission that officially never happened. The safe house was a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a residential complex 200 miles away from Sarah's former life. For 3 weeks, she lived in isolation while federal agents worked to clean up the security breach and prepare her new identity. The only human contact she had was with Agent Chen, who visited daily to provide updates and ensure her safety. During those long days alone, Sarah had plenty of time to think about the irony of her situation. The tattoo that had caused so much trouble was meant to honor her fallen teammates Jake Morrison and Lisa Park, who had died during the extraction phase of Project Nightingale. Now that same memorial was forcing her to abandon everything she had built in their memory. Agent Chen brought news each day about the cleanup operation. Dave's online posts had been successfully discredited by government disinformation specialists who flooded the forums with fake information and hoax claims. The journalist he had contacted was quietly convinced that his sources were unreliable and that pursuing the story would damage his credibility. "Your former co-workers are handling the situation better than expected," Agent Chen reported during one of her visits. "They're all taking the non-disclosure agreement seriously, and none of them have attempted to discuss the matter with outside parties." Sarah felt relieved that her innocent co-workers wouldn't face legal consequences for their accidental involvement in a national security incident. She had grown fond of them during her 3 years at the accounting firm, despite their sometimes annoying curiosity about her personal life. "What about the foreign intelligence services that showed interest?" Sarah asked. "We've been monitoring their communications," Agent Chen replied. "They seem to have accepted our disinformation campaign and believe the whole thing was a hoax created by online conspiracy theorists. They've moved on to other priorities." Sarah nodded, but she knew that her former life could never be truly safe. Once foreign agents had shown interest in her tattoo, there would always be a possibility that someone might make the connection between her and Project Nightingale in the future. On her 4th week in the safe house, Agent Chen arrived with a thick envelope containing Sarah's new identity documents. Her new name was Rachel Thompson, and according to her fabricated history, she was a former administrative assistant from a small town in Oregon who was relocating to Phoenix, Arizona, for a fresh start. "Your new job is with a small engineering consulting firm," Agent Chen explained, handing Sarah a business card. "The owner is a retired Air Force colonel who occasionally assists with classified projects. He understands your situation and will provide cover for your employment without asking questions about your background. Sarah examined her new driver's license, social security card, and employment records. The documents were perfect forgeries that would pass any civilian background check. Rachel Thompson had a complete history that could withstand casual investigation, but Sarah knew she would have to be careful never to attract serious attention to her new identity. "What about my tattoo?" Sarah asked, touching her shoulder blade where the commemorative design was hidden under her shirt. Agent Chen handed her another envelope. "We've prepared a cover story. If anyone asks about it, you're to say it's a memorial for friends who died in a car accident. We've created fake obituaries and news reports to support that story. The design will seem like a personal artistic choice rather than anything connected to military service." Sarah felt a pang of sadness at having to lie about the true meaning of her tattoo, but she understood the necessity. Jake Morrison and Lisa Park would have to be honored in secret, their sacrifice hidden behind a fabricated story about a car accident that never happened. "There's one more thing," Agent Chen said, pulling out a small electronic device. "This is a secure communication device. If you ever notice surveillance or feel that your cover has been compromised, you can send an emergency signal and we'll extract you immediately." Sarah took the device, which looked like an ordinary fitness tracker. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in completely. She would spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, ready to abandon everything and disappear again if her past caught up with her. Agent Chen stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, Project Nightingale prevented a conflict that could have cost thousands of lives. Your sacrifice and the sacrifice of your teammates made a difference, even if the world will never know about it. After Agent Chen left, Sarah sat alone in the safe house apartment, looking at her new identity documents. Tomorrow she would drive to Phoenix and begin life as Rachel Thompson. She would find a new apartment, learn her way around a new city, and build relationships with people who would never know her real name or her true history. The tattoo on her shoulder blade would remain her only physical connection to her former life and fallen friends. Every time she looked in the mirror, she would be reminded of the mission that officially never happened and the teammates who died, protecting secrets that could never be revealed. Sarah packed her few belongings and prepared for another new beginning. She had learned that the past never truly stays buried, especially when it involves classified operations and national security. Her co-workers' innocent curiosity had taught her that even the smallest details of a secret life could unravel. Everything if the wrong people started asking the right questions. As she turned off the lights in the safe house for the last time, Sarah wondered if Rachel Thompson would be her final identity, or if this cycle of disappearance and reinvention would continue for the rest of her life. The tattoo that had started as a memorial to friendship and sacrifice had become a permanent reminder that some secrets come with a lifetime of consequences. 2 years later, Rachel Thompson had successfully built a quiet life in Phoenix. She worked as an administrative coordinator for Morrison Engineering, the consulting firm run by retired Colonel James Morrison. The irony of working for someone with the same last name as her fallen teammate wasn't lost on her, but she had learned to find comfort in small connections to her past, even when they were coincidental. Her new co-workers were polite but not overly curious about her background. The engineering firm attracted employees who understood the value of discretion, and many of them had their own military histories that they preferred not to discuss. Rachel found herself fitting in naturally with people who respected privacy and didn't ask too many personal questions. The tattoo had never been an issue in her new life. On the rare occasions when someone noticed it, she would tell the rehearsed story about friends who died in a car accident. Most people accepted the explanation and offered brief condolences before changing the subject. The fake obituaries and news reports that Agent Chen had created provided convincing backup if anyone ever decided to research her story. Rachel had almost begun to believe that her past was truly behind her when everything changed on a Tuesday morning in September. She was having coffee in the break room when the news report on the wall-mounted television caught her attention. The reporter was discussing newly declassified documents about military operations from the late 2010s. In a rare move, the Department of Defense has released limited information about a successful intelligence operation known as Project Nightingale, the reporter announced. While most details remain classified, officials confirm that the mission prevented a potential international conflict and saved countless lives. Rachel's coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. Several co-workers looked over with concern, but she barely noticed them. On the television screen, a military spokesperson was discussing how Project Nightingale had been one of the most successful reconnaissance missions in recent history, involving a small team of specialists who had operated under extreme secrecy. The mission was so sensitive that even today, the identities of the team members remain classified. The spokesperson continued, "We can confirm that 2 members of the team made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their country, and their families have been informed of this recognition." Rachel felt tears streaming down her face as she realized that Jake Morrison and Lisa Park were finally receiving some measure of public acknowledgement for their sacrifice. While their names couldn't be revealed, the world now knew that they had died as heroes protecting national security. Colonel Morrison appeared in the break room doorway, having heard the news report from his office. He looked at Rachel with understanding in his eyes, and she realized that he had always known more about her background than he had let on. His decision to hire Rachel Thompson had not been coincidental. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, closing the break room door behind him. Rachel wiped her eyes and nodded, trying to compose herself. I lost some friends in military service. Hearing about operations like that brings back memories." Colonel Morrison studied her face for a moment, then sat down across from her. "I know who you really are, Sarah," he said gently. "I've known since the day Agent Chen contacted me about providing you with employment. Your secret is safe here." The relief of finally having someone know her true identity was overwhelming. For 2 years, Rachel had carried the weight of her past alone, unable to share her real experiences or properly mourn her fallen teammates. Having Colonel Morrison acknowledge her sacrifice and service felt like a gift she hadn't expected to receive. "Jake Morrison was my nephew," the colonel continued, his voice thick with emotion. "When they told me he had died in a classified operation, I couldn't even properly grieve for him because I couldn't tell anyone how he really died. When they asked me to provide cover for one of his surviving teammates, I knew it was my chance to honor his memory." Sarah stared at him in shock. The coincidence of working for Jake's uncle seemed impossible, but she realized it probably wasn't a coincidence at all. The government handlers who had created her new identity had likely chosen Morrison Engineering, specifically because of the family connection, knowing that the colonel would have additional motivation to protect her cover. "He talked about you and Lisa in his letters home," Colonel Morrison said. "He never mentioned specifics because of security protocols, but he said his team was like family to him. He was proud of the work you were doing together, even though he couldn't tell us what it was." Over the following days, the news coverage of Project Nightingale's partial declassification continued. Military analysts discussed the strategic importance of intelligence-gathering operations and praised the unnamed team members who had risked their lives for national security. Sarah felt a bittersweet satisfaction, knowing that the world finally understood, even in general terms, the significance of what she and her teammates had accomplished. The media attention also brought unexpected validation for the choice she had made to get the commemorative tattoo. While the design remained classified and couldn't be publicly displayed, Sarah knew that it represented something worthy of the risks it had created. Jake and Lisa's sacrifice had prevented a conflict that could have cost thousands of lives, and that knowledge made the loss of her civilian identity seem like an acceptable price to pay. A month after the declassification announcement, Sarah received a visit from Agent Chen, who brought news that would change her life once again. "The partial disclosure of Project Nightingale has had an interesting side effect," Agent Chen explained. "Several foreign intelligence services have concluded that any operatives connected to the mission are either dead or have been so thoroughly relocated that finding them would be impossible." Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. "Does that mean I'm safe?" "We believe so," Agent Chen replied. "Your former co-worker's amateur investigation is now seen as a fortunate accident that helped us test our security protocols. The foreign interest in your tattoo has been completely forgotten, and our monitoring indicates no current threats to your safety." For the first time in years, Sarah felt like she might be able to stop looking over her shoulder. The partial declassification of Project Nightingale had inadvertently provided her with the cover she needed to live without fear of discovery. Agent Chen handed her a small gift box. "This is from the families of your fallen teammates. Now that the mission has been partially acknowledged, they wanted you to have something to remember them by." Inside the box were 2 military challenge coins, one engraved with Jake's initials and one with Lisa's. They were beautiful pieces that she could display openly without compromising security, finally giving her a way to honor her friend's memory without hiding behind cover stories. 6 months later, Sarah Martinez officially reclaimed her real name. The government had determined that the security risks had passed and that she could safely resume her true identity. She kept her job at Morrison Engineering, where Colonel Morrison was delighted to finally be able to call her by her real name and share stories about his nephew Jake. The tattoo on her shoulder blade remained exactly as it had always been, but its meaning had evolved. It was still a memorial to Jake Morrison and Lisa Park, but it had also become a symbol of resilience and the price of protecting national security. The office workers who had innocently teased her about its mysterious appearance would never know that their curiosity had briefly threatened international security and changed her life forever. Sarah learned to find peace with the strange journey her life had taken. A simple commemorative tattoo had led to years of hiding and fear, but it had also connected her with Jake's family and given her a deeper understanding of the lasting impact of classified service. Some secrets were worth keeping, even when they required sacrificing the normal life she had tried so hard to build. Years later, when people asked about her unusual tattoo, Sarah would smile and tell them it represented friendship, sacrifice, and the importance of some stories that could never be fully told. It was the truth, even if it wasn't the whole truth, and that was enough.